Hello, my name is Hayley Stephen, and this is my presentation about human immunity. This presentation is going to include the explanation of the three lines of defense, self-recognition and the tolerance, autoimmune system disorders, the immune system's response to vaccinations, the concept of herd immunity, and the vaccination factors. The human immune system obtains three defense systems, each with a different function to help fight bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites, otherwise known as pathogens. Pathogens cause an immune response and may cause illness. A human may obtain a disease through one-to-one contact with an animal or a human, or even a fetus can obtain a pathogen through the umbilical cord into the womb from the carrier. A disease can be caught from a carrier in several ways, including coughing, touching, being bitten. Infectious diseases may also be spread by touch on surfaces or coughing onto surfaces, an insect bite, or through food contamination. The first and second lines of defense are innate responses, not specific. These defenses start from birth and are effected against many foreign bodies or diseases. The first stage responses consist of chemical and physical barriers. One physical barrier is the skin. The skin plays a vital role to eliminate pathogens and prevents tissues and blood infections. Due to its waterproof barrier, epithelial lining, and constant replacement of skin cells, the skin provides a barrier not to allow the outside to get in, and therefore prevents many infections. However, if the skin breaks, infections may occur. Another physical barrier is earwax and the nose's hair. These also play a crucial role in keeping out or trapping pathogens due to the pathogens becoming stuck within the hair or wax. Mucous membranes within the body also keep out pathogens and let the nutrients remain in by creating a sticky mucus. The mucus holds the pathogens and sneezing will let them out again. Furthermore, some acidic environments such as gastric juices or urine also restrict pathogens. Lastly, the mouth and eyes are another possible entry point for pathogens. Tears and saliva contain an enzyme that breaks down bacteria cells. Those that pass through are trapped into the mucus and swallowed. The gut lining, however, is also another way to expel the pathogens. An example of the first barrier performance is when one person obtained an open wound that was left unmanaged and the other had healthy skin. The person with the open wound would potentially let in pathogens, creating illness and disease within the body. When pathogens manage to cross the first line of defense, they will enter the second defense barriers. These include inflammation, fever, and cytokines. Inflammation occurs when cells surround and blood flow increases when damage occurs. Inflammation is usually painful, red in color, and generally the area swells and becomes pussy. This is because of the increased blood flow and cells. Mast cells release histamine. Histamine changes the blood vessels within the infected region. And platelets leak through the leaky cavity walls to the infection site. White blood cells, like neutrophils, squeeze through the cavity wall gaps to phagocytize bacteria and damage cells. Proteins and heat rising in the affected area also help increase immunity and discard pathogens. Inflammation will stop once the infection has gone or the area has healed. An example of inflammation arising is if a child trips up and slices open the skin tissue down to the bone. Cytokines also play a pivotal role to keep pathogens at bay. Cytokines are proteins that signal and migrate cells. Some of the cell types are monokines, interferons, and interleukins. Fevers such as a high temperature, runny nose, or vomiting are additional barriers to keeping pathogens out. Heat kills cells, and any pathogens inside the nose or stomach will become churned out by vomiting or sneezing. The third line of defense occurs if the pathogens get through the first and second defense lines. The third and last line of defense focus on specific responses. Pathogens are infectious vesicles. However, within the pathogens, the antigen molecules let the body know if it is being attacked and creates an immune response. Antigens comprise of proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids, and antigens are present in all cell types. Acquired immunity develops over years through environments and the body's foreign substances. The body cells will learn how to memorize and attack a specific antigen that it has come across before. White blood cells and nucleokines are critical to the immune system. The 5 white blood cell types are neutrophils, basophils, and monocytes, eosinophils, and lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are white blood cells that search, remember, and destroy the pathogen. Lymphocytes consist of a large nucleus, cytoplasm, B cells, and T cells. B cells circulate the front lines of blood and are in the tissues throughout the body. B cells consist of memory cells and specific plasma cells, which are antibody cells. 10% of Lima cells are B cells. T cells mature in the lymph. Once mature, T cells move to the invasion point. T cells help activate specific defenses and turn on the immune system to search for infected cells within the body to destroy. 75% of lymphocytes are T cells. When the body exposes to antigens, antibodies are created, known as immunoglobulins. Immunoglobulins are proteins that have been produced by B cells and help protect from specific viruses or bacteria, creating an immune system against them. Immunoglobulins have many types: IgA, IgD, IgE, IgG, or IgM, each with a different structure. The typical structure comprises of 4 chains. 2 chains are light and 2 are heavy. At the end of the structure, it can recognize antigens. The 2 main ones are IgG and IgA. IgG recognizes and stimulates an attack. An example is transportation from the placenta to the fetus. IgA plays the role of the cellular defenses on mucous areas of the body. The third defense barriers uses acquired immunity to focus on specific antigens to learn how to destroy them. On rare occasions, no natural or artificial obtainment can stop the pathogens affecting the immune system, resulting in death. T cells and B cells within the body make antibodies for any antigen. These also include materials within the body that we do not need to be distinguished, for example, proteins or insulin. This process is known as self-immunity. Self-immunity means that materials are needed inside the body to work efficiently. Non-self-immunity will still want to take place, which is pathogens from the outside coming into the body. In order for cells to stop distinguishing self-immunities, they need to be distinguished, which can occur through 2 different defense mechanisms. The first defense mechanism is when the unmatured B cells within the bone marrow and all the self materials are floating around together. If the B cells connect their receptors with one of the self materials within the non-matured stage, it will be distinguished. The remaining will leave the bone marrow and mature to active B cells with a different environment to fulfill their role of memory and antibodies for the immune system. The exact process occurs for the T cells within the thymus. However, sometimes the occasional cell will slip through the bone marrow or thymus and become active to a self material. Furthermore, the second defense mechanism will begin. The self materials attached to the B cells will begin to break and bind to present on a MHC2 molecule for a T cell to come and recognize the self-attacked material, to activate it, and therefore will release antibodies. Sometimes both defense mechanisms will fail and autoimmune system disorders will occur. Before discussing immune disorders in further detail, I will briefly mention about tolerance. Tolerance to a new organ is vital for survival. A new organ through transplantation has many risks. The occupants will both need to have similar antibodies, cells, blood, and tissue types to be accepted for the organ. If the occupants both have different antibodies, tissues, types, and receptors, the T cells will start to break down the cells surrounding the newly transplanted organ, attaching them to it as a pathogen has entered the body. The organ will therefore be rejected. The organ should then be removed from the body immediately due to death occurring. However, if the two bodies share similar antibodies, cells, tissue, and blood types, the organ can be more likely to survive within the body with the help from monoclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies clone white blood cells to link to the other body well. There are more than 80 autoimmune diseases which include RA, multiple sclerosis, and Addison's. The first signs of an autoimmune disease tend to be things like fatigue, fever, and inflammation. Some of the most common locations affected are the joints, skin, the muscles, the blood vessels, and connective tissues. An immune disease through blood or antibodies or protein tests is confirmed that way. However, it is usually hard to determine which disease it may belong to because lots of them are very similar. To control an immune disorder, a healthy diet is recommended, as well as regular exercise, obtaining some sun, and de-stressing. Or for medical intervention, blood transfusions, pain relief, and medication like an anti-inflammatory are recommended. Two of the immune diseases are rheumatoid arthritis, which is a disease that can cause stiffness and swelling within the joints, which start to break down. Cells mistakenly attack cells such as the joints occur RA. DMARD tablets will ease RA by blocking the effects of the chemicals being released when attacking the cell joints. Multiple sclerosis is a disease that affects the nervous system. It can cause many problems including numbness, fatigue, loss of vision, and muscle contractions. MS disease forms because the immune system starts to attack cells, and this results in nerve damage. Beta blockers and steroids can help ease the disease. Acquired immunity can come into the body actively or passively. Active naturally acquired means that the person's immune system creates long-lasting antibodies, e.g. through natural pathogens, or active artificially acquired is from a vaccination. Passively naturally acquired means short-lasting and exposed to an antigen, i.e. a new baby will have a short-term amount of antibodies from the mother through breastfeeding or through the womb. And passively artificially activated is a short-term antibodies, which is, for example, an injection. A vaccine enters the body will weaken material pathogens to make antibodies. The weakened materials enter the body to build a defense against viruses, diseases, and bacteria, and to create an immunological memory. There are two different types of vaccines. There are live vaccines and inactivated vaccines. Once the vaccination has entered, white blood cells will attack and destroy the material, resulting in antibodies being produced to help fight the vaccine's materials. And when necessary, it will be used again, but until then it will stay in the immunological memory. An example of this could be the COVID-19 vaccine. The vaccine produces some antibodies in the body and will be stored in the immunological memory to weaken the strength of the virus if the person wants to obtain it at a later date. The immunological memory relies on the immune system setting off a trigger by a past antigen. There are two sections, the primary immune system and the secondary immune system. The primary immune system is the first encounter with an antigen, where B cells and T cells can recognize an antigen and collect receptors. Clones will produce antibodies. The antibodies in the primary response will increase in quantity and then slowly decline and level out. However, the range is still higher than before the first encounter occurred. The secondary immune system is when a second infection occurs with the same antigen from the first encounter. The antibody concentration will shoot up very quickly to its peak because the body has experienced the antigen before. Vaccines vary on how long protection from antigens can last. Therefore, top-up vaccines are sometimes necessary. Vaccinations help protect severe illnesses or death from viral diseases because antibodies cannot always help. Measles is one of the many viral diseases. Since the vaccinations began, cases of measles have dropped by 99%. Without the vaccination, measles can spread rapidly and therefore hospitals admissions and death rates would soar again. In 1940, the yearly death rate was 857, and in 2017, with a vaccination in place, the death toll stands at just 1. Herd immunity plays an essential role in protection. If a high percentage of the country remains protected against the disease through vaccination, it becomes harder for it to pass through people who have not been vaccinated. This is important as not everyone can be vaccinated, but those that can help protect those who cannot. At least 95% of the population need to be protected to achieve herd immunity. The primary reproduction number provides a number to how many people in the country should be vaccinated to stop the spread of disease. The higher the RO, the higher the immunity threshold will be, because this will help the to keep the decreased level under control. The immunity threshold depends on many factors such as how effective the vaccine is and how long does it last for. When a new disease or virus variant occurs, protective isolation will come into play. Protective isolation places infectious people separate from non-infectious people. This will restrict the infection flow until a vaccine can be made and a vaccine program is put into place. Vaccine programs produced by the National Health Service control viruses and diseases. However, it has been hard for the upkeep of the vaccine program due to many factors. These factors include characteristics such as sex, race and age, the content of the vaccine, and the occupant's safety from having the vaccine. Many reports of the potential risk of learning difficulties and other things from later in life from having the vaccine are also a factor. However, all of these risk factors are still lower than the illness and the death rates if no vaccination programs were in place at all. Thank you so much for watching my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.